Hello, everybody, and welcome to Gamer Weekly. With me today is Neil from Steel Production, Steel, Steel Sky
Good stuff.
Production, and 10 Man Games. Thank you so much for coming onto the show.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
So, you guys are currently working on a Warhammer game. It's called Warhammer Underworlds Online. Can you tell me a little bit about it?
Yeah, so Warhammer Underworlds Online it's the digital version of the very popular Warhammer Underworld series board games that have been released by Games Workshop over the last few years. I think the first box set came out in 2017, and that was Warhammer Underworld Shadespire. That was followed up by Warhammer Underworld's Night Vault, and more recently they released the third box set, which was called Warhammer Underworld's Beastgrave. We're making a video game adaptation of that board game, which is almost a one-to-one of that. And we're sort of like grouping it all together, and we'll be releasing it under the header of Warhammer Underworlds Online. And it's coming out January 28th.
Super close.
Early access. Oh, tell me about it.
Are you guys feeling the pressure?
Yes, I'm currently sat in a little room, and outside all my co-workers are busy working very hard on it, and it's what I call the dirty end of the project, which is it's that bit where you've got to get it across the line, and it's fun. It's making video games is fun.
I've noticed that a lot more come out about like the video game industry, just about like crunch time and things like that. So I'm hoping that you guys aren't having to deal with anything like that, because I know that that's just crazy. Like, a lot of people don't realize that things like that happen where people are working like 90-hour work weeks, which is just, I could never ever do something like that. That just blows my mind.
Yeah. Well, we have a bit of a policy here that we don't do crunch, especially crunch that lasts, a long period of time. There are inevitably moments where a few extra hours need to be put in because we need to fix something that's broken, or do other things. Especially we're in Australia as well, so time zone wise, with Europe and the United States, we're a bit off kilter. So I sometimes have to, maybe take a call late at night or various things. But yeah, we don't do crunch. When I was a younger developer, because I've been around doing this for about 20 years, in the early days, I crunched a lot on some projects, working for a few companies, and it was not good for my mental health. And so I actively encourage my staff not to watch themselves, and to try and encourage them not to work ridiculous hours. So we're pretty good in that respect.
Because I feel like a lot of, especially younger developers getting into the industry, they get told, you should be grateful that you're getting this kind of opportunity. If you don't do this, you're not putting in your dues or anything like that. It's like, no, it's just a company taking advantage of you at that point. Like, you're not really gaining anything from that. And like you said, mental health wise, like, that's draining. It's very draining on somebody.
Yeah, I think. Look, I can't speak for lots of other companies around the world. I can only speak for the companies or game studios that I have friends that run, or people that I've met. On the whole, the industry, I think, has got better over the last 10 years or so. There's a lot more attention to detail on mental health issues and overworking. And so, I don't think it's anywhere near as bad as it used to be. But I mean, look, there are always reports that crop up online about certain companies mistreating staff, etc. So it does happen, but I would say on the whole, it's gotten a lot better.
Which is good.
Yes, very, very good.
And speaking of very good, so Warhammer. So for people that aren't familiar with like how uh, Warhammer works, like what is the difference between normal Warhammer and then the Underworld's Warhammer?
So Games Workshop have been running for many years and they've had Warhammer. So in the past, their two main brands were Warhammer Fantasy Battle and Warhammer 40,000. So Fantasy Battle is kind of like the obviously the fantasy, your typical sort of medieval fantasy kind of thing, with wizards and orcs and whatnot. Warhammer 40,000 was their more science fiction line, which is taking sort of fantasy battle characters into the far future. And that's where you get your Space Marines, and that's where games like Space Hulk and those kinds of games come from. What Warhammer Underworlds is actually a number of years ago, Games Workshop rebooted the Warhammer Fantasy side of their business into a thing called Age of Sigmar. Warhammer Underworld comes from this new kind of line of Age of Sigmar. It's part of that sort of that world. So it's kind of like it's an age of mythic heroes and big events, cataclysmic events. And so the Underworld's game takes part in this mirrored city called Shadespire, which is this big undead realm where all these warriors have come in to seek glory and fame and have kind of got trapped here and have these sort of like massive battles between each other. So that's what Underworld. And Underworld's basically has been created as it's a mainly two-player game where you take a warband each. A warband can be made up of anything between 3 warriors and up to like 7 in some warbands' case. It's a very short game. It only takes 3 rounds to play. Games last between like 30 minutes and 45 minutes. It's got card deck building as well. So it's kind of like it sort of branches into that kind of CCG Hearthstone area of people's interests in games. So it's very, very good, is what I was saying.
Is it going to have a lot of the free-to-play model things to it, kind of like how Hearthstone is, or is it just going to be that you're going to have all the units and you're going to have all the cards available right from the get-go?
No, so we're definitely not a free-to-play game. It's a premium game, so we'll be launching into early access at a set price. And that for early access, you'll get access to 4 warbands, which we've already announced. You also will get all the card decks related to those 4 warbands. And you'll also get what we call a bunch of universal cards as well. And we'll actually be releasing universal cards for free. So every time every few weeks we'll be dropping some new cards into the game, and they will be for free for everybody. And then there will be paid DLC for new warbands in the future, which will come with their specific cards related to those warbands. I think at the moment in the Warhammer Underworlds universe, there is currently about 22 warbands, I think, that are playable in the board game. So you'll get 4 from the outset, and then we'll slowly start releasing more warbands over time. But the main one of the main differences on the business side of it between us and the board game is that for the physical board game, the universal cards actually come as part of the warbands that you buy in the box sets. We'll actually not be doing that. We're actually going to be giving those. They'll be actually released for free. So our meta for the game is slightly different to that of the physical board game.
So do you actually play the board game at all? Like
yeah. I play a lot.
How do you play just the original Warhammer, or do you play 40K as well?
No, I don't. I mean, look, I've got 2 kids. I don't have much time to play massive, epic, war games that take days to play. But the great thing about Warhammer Underworlds is that, like I said, it takes half an hour, 45 minutes to play. So you can have you can just go, hey, I want a game of Warhammer Underworld. You get the box set out, you choose your deck, you get going, and you play a game. So it's a great game for me personally because it means I can just get a game in within an hour if I wanted to. And I've actually, my 9-year-old daughter, we actually played a lot over the Christmas holidays, and I've taught her how to play. And she's got her own warband, her own deck. She's very precious about it. She understands the rules really well, and we had some great battles over the holidays. So it's been really good from that point of view too. So it's kind of like it's like it's like a really great entry point for miniature wargaming for people, especially if they haven't played before. So yeah, and obviously our digital version is going to be a 1-to-1 of that, so it'll sort of mirror that in many ways.
Who knew that Warhammer could bring the family together? Do you? I've got some friends that play Warhammer, and they've always wanted me to get into it, but then they're like, "So you're gonna have to spend like $900 to get your army going, or something crazy amount." I'm like, no, I couldn't even get into Magic the Gathering because of just how much it was gonna spend. Like, oh, you want a standard deck? This is how much it's gonna cost. You want something better than that? This is how much it's gonna cost. I'm not gonna drop.
Well, I mean,
and
here's the big sell, right? I mean, our video game version of Warhammer Underworlds online is going to be, it will be a really great entry. So if you've ever had an inkling that you want to get, our game will be a really good entry point for that, I think. So if there's anybody listening, yeah, check it out for sure.
Which I will put in the link down below, as the YouTubers say it. Am I a YouTuber if I'm on YouTube? I don't really know how that whole thing works. But do you have a favorite warband, or do you just do you like all of them for certain reasons?
I like all. I haven't played with them all actually. I've got a few that I've played with that I play regularly with. I went through a stage of really enjoying the Fire Slayers, which are kind of like the dwarf warband. They've got kind of big red beards and big axes, and they're pretty sort of robust. I quite like them. I've always been quite into dwarves. I remember playing Blood Bowl years ago, and like I had the dwarf team in that. And I think when I used to play D&D, I had a bunch of dwarf adventurers. So for some reason, dwarves appeal to me. I'm not sure why.
They're short, sweet, and get straight to the point. That's why everyone loves dwarves.
They do. And in Warhammer Underworlds, the dwarves are very objective based. So because players, your warband inspires on certain conditions, and the dwarves inspire on objectives. And it makes a really good. You can get some really good tactics playing with the dwarves to try and win games.
So with Warhammer, with it being so vast, especially like I had no idea just how big the Warhammer universe even extends out to. For a while, I didn't even know there was a difference between Warhammer and 40K. I thought it was just all like one thing, and I was dead wrong. You got games like Vermintide and like Dawn of War and all that stuff. Besides obviously the game that you're currently creating right now, is there a dream Warhammer type game for you that hasn't really been made yet, besides the one that you're currently making?
God, that's a really good question. I think there's been a lot of Warhammer games over the years for lots of systems. I mean, I remember playing Space Hulk on my Commodore Amiga 500 way back in the day. So there's a lot of things out there for lots of people. I tell you, I'm sorry, it's going to sound like I'm selling my own product again, but one of the things that I think Warhammer Underworlds Online does is the other games haven't strictly done in the past, is that we're very much a 1-to-1 of the board game, whereas a lot of the other Warhammer games out there generally have been more video game adaptations of certain aspects of other board games or the universe at large. So the fact that we're doing a 1-to-1, actually, it's pretty cool, because it means that you're actually you can actually play it as a board game within your computer rather than playing like it's not like a first person shooter or another kind of third person action adventure game or something. It's literally the board game 1-to-1 almost. So with a few more graphical bells and whistles, obviously. So I'm pretty excited that we're doing that, because that's pretty, that hasn't been done very much in the past.
Yeah, like I would like to play like a virtual Warhammer or 40K, just so that I knew how to even get into it anyway, because buying all the model kits and painting everything and doing all that is just very intimidating. And plus, I don't have space for that. I have a very tiny little office here, and I can't imagine filling it up with an entire army and a base and all that stuff. And also, I can't paint to save my life, so there is that too. Um, I feel the same way about like D&D as well. Like I don't feel like there's anything that's quite you can play a virtual D&D campaign, but you only can play like Neverwinter Nights. I mean, not saying that that's a bad thing, 'cause, I mean, it's a good game, but um, I just feel like there's not really like a good entry point into getting into those giant franchises. Would you say that like Warhammer Underworld is probably like the best spot to get into like more traditional Warhammer?
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's a really good entry point. It's yeah. Look, like I said to you, like I don't have the space all the time to play. I would love to spend a whole weekend and play a Warhammer 40K battle, but I just don't have that capacity to do that. But like I said, Underworlds, it's a game that I can just crack open and just have a game, and it scratches that itch for me. And it's really great from that regard. So yeah, I think there'll be many people like yourself, I think, that have similar life issues with those kinds of things, and I think it's definitely a good thing to jump into for sure if you're that way inclined.
So I mean, the other question I have for Warhammer then is, can you customize any of the characters in this, or is it just a base set of how it looks?
No, so one of the things that we're doing in our version is that there will be skins. So you'll be able to unlock customizable skins and apply them to your models in the game. So essentially, you're able, in a way, to have your own paint jobs on your miniatures that walk around, which is pretty cool. And actually, for early access, we're actually got some exclusive skins for each of the 4 warbands that are in there that will only be available to people that buy it within the early access period. So that's pretty cool. So you'll have like a unique, set of armor, etc. For that.
And the skins are purely going to be cosmetic too, right? There's no advantage of having one skin to the other.
No, it's purely cosmetic. The important thing for us as game designers is that we keep the meta, the competitive nature of the game very constrained to what the game is, which is basically the warbands and the card decks. So yeah, it's purely a cosmetic thing. But over time, the hope will be that we'll have a large number of skins in there, and there'll be some unique skins that will only be available for completing certain things. So yeah, it allows us to have stuff where people can show off, different things for their characters over time. So.
And then I guess like the last couple questions that I have, well, we'll do 2 short questions, like 2 yes or no's. Obviously, so online PvP, yes?
Yes.
Fantastic. Will there be mod support or Steam Workshop?
No.
Okay.
But
And then the final question, I tried to tell this, or I try to ask this to almost every single guest that I have. For you, what does making video games mean to you? It's a very loaded question, I
Uh,
know.
no, it's a great question. Look, I've been in this business for 20 years, and I got my first home computer, a ZX Spectrum 48K, when I was about, I think I was probably about 9, and I used to type in bits of code, make my own little bits of basic computer games. I used to type in code from magazines I used to get off from the shops and make games, and I just loved the whole making something digital come to life on the screen. And I've always been involved in some sort of digital creativity throughout my life. And yeah, and I get to come and do that as my job every day. I get to hang out with a load of cool people that also love doing that. I, it's brilliant. It's such a wonderful thing to be involved in, and it's such a fast-moving industry as well that you're always kept on your toes. There's always new and exciting technologies coming out, new sales platforms to sell your games on. There's new ways, new styles of games popping up all the time. Yeah, I just love it, and I love we do lots of shows where we go to like penny arcade expos over in the States and various other parts of the world doing, and you get to meet the fans, and you get to watch people playing your games and seeing the smiles on their faces and sharing stuff online, and it's just wonderful. It's a great industry to be involved in. I feel very privileged to be making video games for a living. It's brilliant fun.
And I'm hoping that Warhammer Underworld Online does fantastic for you guys.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to playing it. It comes out in 12 days, so it's gonna be, well, from the time of this recording, it comes out in 12 days. So the 28th is when the game's gonna come out into early access. You can add it to your Steam wish list. They also have a Discord and all that stuff on their website as well, which I'll put a link to their website in the description as well. And if you enjoyed watching this video, please watch the other videos because it also has some really cool people on there. It's just scroll on through. Who knows who you'll find. And there's also the SoundCloud stuff, and you can find the show on Google Play, iTunes, the Toaster, whatever is available to you. So thank you so much for being on the show. I greatly appreciate it. And thank you anyone out there who is sitting there watching or listening in their car or whatever. I greatly appreciate it as well. And yeah, you guys have a nice day. And Neil, thank you again for coming on to the show.
No worries.
So
that's been a lot of fun. It's been good chatting to you.
And I've had a great time. And I hope that everybody checks out your game because it's going to be pretty dope.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody.
Goodbye, everybody.